Imagine walking through a silent church more than 400 years old. Hidden beneath the floorboards, in coffins long forgotten, are the bones of elite Jamestown settlers. Now, imagine that modern science is whispering secrets those settlers tried to bury forever. What identity did they hide? What scandal were they trying to escape? Tonight we uncover, through ancient DNA, the dark family secret that rocked one of America's oldest English colonies. A low hum of history echoes at Jamestown. Beneath centuries of soil lie graves long forgotten, aligned in solemn order within a church built between 1608 and 1616. These graves are not ordinary. They occupy the chancel, the area beside the altar reserved for the highest among the settlers. For generations, no one knew the names buried there, nor the truth they held in their bones. But now, with ancient DNA, shadows begin to part, and the secret begins to speak. The settlers of Jamestown came with hopes, fears, and ambitions. English nobles, soldiers, clergy, and dreamers. Life in the early colony was merciless. Hunger, disease, conflicts with indigenous populations, death. Despite that, certain men were honored, laid to rest in ornate coffins, buried close to the altar, status preserved even in death. Their lives and their final resting places spoke of privilege, but also of stories unwritten and records unkept. These graves held prestige, and prestige often hides more than it reveals. Something about two of the graves caught attention. Identical coffin craftsmanship, matching nails, similar burial orientations, proximity to power, inscriptions missing, names unknown. In the dusty bones and fragments of wood were clues that ordinary archaeology couldn't unravel alone. It required modern science, osteology, isotope chemistry, and the delicate extraction of ancient DNA. The layers of earth, the burial wood, the bones themselves were waiting for someone to read what had been left unsaid. In 2010 and in subsequent years, excavations uncovered foundations of what is called the 1608 church in Jamestown, second, though foundational in its bones, for the colony's spiritual life. Archaeologists mapped its structure, discovered its layout, and within its eastern chancel found 4 aligned graves. These burials were clearly intentional, carefully constructed, with wood and metal and attention to position. They were not haphazard. These were the burials of people with rank. The chancel burials are rare and heavily symbolic. Only the elite could be interred so close to the altar, which symbolically was closest to God. To be buried in that place meant you had status, resources, recognition. Grave Junior 2992C and Junior 170C among the 4 were especially prominent, matching coffin style, high-quality nails and wood, grave positioning, making them visible and honored. The death dates of likely occupants around 1610 line up with documented arrivals and deaths in the colony, but the trick was matching the skeleton to a name. The other parts of the puzzle came from the bones. Age at death from skeletal morphology, signs of where they grew up via isotopes, exposure to metals like lead via bone chemistry, coffin artifacts, clothing remnants. One skeleton had a ceremonial silk sash, silver fringe. Both had elevated levels of lead, consistent with someone using expensive pewter dishes or lead-glazed ceramics. Markers of wealth in England then. All this converged to suggest these were not peasants, but people of high birth. Yet historical records for one man in particular were vague, missing key family links. Sir Ferdinando Winman is relatively well documented. Born about 1576, an English military officer, investor in the Virginia Company, part of powerful networks, cousin to Governor Thomas West, 3rd Baron de la Ware. He arrived in Jamestown in 1610. By mid or late 1610, he had died. His family tree was traced, his lineage clear, his status unquestioned. The bones suggest someone of his age, status, and origin, including elevated lead in bones and care in burial. Captain William West is far more mysterious. Born about 1586, little is known of his parentage. Some records call him a kinsman of Governor Thomas West. Documents are inconsistent. Some refer to him as nephew, some as cousin, some simply as kinsman, none specifying mother. He is young at death. Skeletal indicators suggest early 20s. He comes to Virginia with the same powerful network, dies around the same time as Winman, and receives the honors of an elite burial. These two graves, Junior 2992C, likely Winman, and Junior 170C, likely West, were similar in many ways, matching coffin style, high status markers, proximity in the church chancel. But only when ancient DNA was done could the mystery of West be more than guesswork. For Winman, history had recorded much: family, wealth, connections. For West, the record was silent on a core part of identity, his maternal lineage and legitimacy. The bones and the DNA would change that. The team used multiple disciplines: archaeological excavation, osteology, study of skeletons, isotope chemistry, and genetic science, especially ancient DNA, aDNA. Excavation gave context. Osteology gave age, sex, stature. Isotope analysis gave clues of geographic origin and diet. DNA gave lineage. All were essential because no one discipline alone could confirm identity definitively. Ancient DNA is delicate. In the case of these skeletons, preservation was poor. DNA from bone degrades over time. Contamination and time both erode signal. Nonetheless, scientists extracted mitochondrial DNA, which descends via the mother's line, and managed to assign haplogroup H1OE to both skeletons. This is a rare maternal lineage in England, giving strong odds that Winman and West were maternally related. These genetic results triggered further archival research. Isotopes and bone chemistry showed both men were raised in England. Elevated levels of lead in both skeletons pointed to elite lifestyle, pewter and lead-glazed wares, rich diet. The coffin's craftsmanship and burial treatment confirmed high status. Together, archaeology and science painted a profile. These were not accidental or minor colonists, but people deeply connected to power, to lineage, and for one, a lineage kept hidden. Mitochondrial haplogroup H1OE is a cluster of genetic markers inherited only from mother to child. It is comparatively rare in Britain. For both Junior 2992C and Junior 170C to share, it means they share a common maternal ancestor. That shared maternal line was previously undocumented for William West, who had no official record of who his mother was. The genetic evidence offered a clue archaeology and documentary history could pursue. This result meant the story couldn't end with just bones. Archival historians searched English records, wills, court cases, family trees. They looked at the West family genealogy. the elder William West, his daughters Jane, Mary, Elizabeth, the Aunt Mary Blount, Elizabeth, the unmarried sister, all women of that branch. Records showed that Elizabeth West, unmarried, deceased, had given jewels to a young William under verbal nuncupative will. Then after her death, her sister Mary Blount cared for William. There was a court case, Blount v. Abbott, 1616, in which issues of inheritance and legitimacy were contested. So William West emerges as the illegitimate son of Elizabeth West, sister of Mary Blount, daughter of William West, 1st Baron de la Ware. The narratives and historical documents obscure the truth. Elizabeth is described as unmarried and childless, but the court documents, the DNA, and the inheritance dispute tell otherwise. She left jewels to William. Mary Blount raised him, and after William's death, Mary attempted to reclaim certain possessions. In other words, the scientific find exposed what social mores tried to hide. In the hierarchical society of early 17th century England, birth status was everything. Being born in wedlock defined inheritance rights, social respectability, legal recognition. Illegitimacy meant limited rights. No rights to family coat of arms, possibly excluded from certain inheritances or positions. Socially degraded unless powerful networks intervened. For someone with high status, being illegitimate created legal and social obstacles. Records of many families deliberately omit or obscure cases of shameful births. Women who bore children outside marriage were often marginalized. Children might be raised by relatives but prevented from occupying full family inheritance. Illegitimacy was a stigma. For William West, being illegitimate meant being omitted from formal lineages while still connected enough to high-status family to be given patronage, education, opportunity. His maternal aunt acted as caregiver. He used his family name. But formal paternal inheritance was murky. This also helps explain why perhaps William came to Jamestown. The New World was an opportunity. Less rigid social scrutiny, chance to build reputation, escape the quiet shame or silence that might accompany illegitimate birth in England. Despite the hidden nature of his origins, he was accepted among the colony's elite enough for burial in the chancel of the church. Perhaps Jamestown's precarious hierarchy, its need for connections and competence, afforded William West a status he would not fully claim back home. After William West's death, disputes arose over his possessions. The court case Blount v. Abbott in 1616 is a key document. It details how Mary Blount, his maternal aunt, was the beneficiary of his will and had been caring for him after his mother Elizabeth's death. She claimed certain jewels and ornaments that Elizabeth had given William, which had later passed through various hands after Elizabeth's death. The case gives voice to contested claims and reveals family dynamics. Within the pleading, language is careful. Terms like only cousin or friend are used, even though Elizabeth is described as unmarried and childless. Yet she left William's jewels to him, indicating parentage. Such phrasing is coded. Illegitimacy being taboo meant that formal documents avoided stating mother or son in normalized terms when illegitimacy was involved. Genealogists see this as deliberate omission to preserve honor, avoid scandal. Yet the estate rights reveal substantive fact. The case doesn't give all answers, but it corroborates what the DNA suggested. It shows that Elizabeth West had a son, William, that Mary Blount raised him, that inheritance was verbal or nuncupative, and that William's identity was partly obscured in official lineages. With this combined with archaeological and DNA evidence, a more complete picture emerges. William West was born illegitimate, raised by an aunt, but recognized in life and in death by his extended family with some honor. Though there are no surviving gravestones with inscriptions for Junior 170C or Junior 2992C, the coffins and burial locations act like symbols. The coffins for Winman and West were similar style, anthropomorphic forms, high craftsmanship, quality nail signs of wealth. Their orientation in the chancel, side by side or aligned among other high-status graves, underscores that they were considered important in the colony. Artifact remnants also spoke. Clothing fragments, silk military sash with silver fringe for West, for example. Metal objects and ornaments. Even patterns of lead and bone indicating diet and use of objects that likely involved leaded wear. These material clues tell of a life with privilege, objects that only prosperous people used. The high lead levels especially, which accumulate over time via contact with pewter tableware or lead glaze, were clear chemical signatures of affluence. Even the placement of their graves, proximity to altar matching coffin styles, matching orientation, clearly deliberate. That tells us that someone made sure their final resting place reflected not just who they were, but who they were meant to be seen as, and importantly, someone cared to bury them with dignity, despite the fact that one of them lacked certain formal social recognition. The burial symbolism contradicts omission in written record. Human remains, especially old ones, are fragile. The bones from these graves suffered decay. DNA preservation was poor. Environmental factors in Virginia's soil, humidity, microbial activity all degrade bone and DNA. Yet scientists managed to extract enough to assign mitochondrial haplogroups and to do limited autosomal SNP analysis. This is a triumph of technique, of patient lab work. Records are even more fragile. Wills lost, letters missing, genealogies biased. In this case, Elizabeth West is recorded as unmarried and childless, yet documents like Blount v. Abbott and Wills show she did have a child. Some documents survive only in fragments. Others may have been deliberately silent. Social stigma, legal risk, family honor could all lead to omission or misstatement in official genealogies. Together, the fragile bones and incomplete records meant that only a combined, multidisciplinary approach could reconstruct the past. No single source, neither bone nor archive alone, sufficed. Only when they were brought together did the shape of truth emerge. And that suggests there may be other lives, other graves, whose stories remain hidden until we marry genetics, archaeology, and history. The story of Winman, West, Elizabeth, Mary Blount, and Governor Thomas West shows a network of family, power, patronage. Winman is cousin to Thomas West, sharing social standing, privilege. Elizabeth, Mary, Jane are daughters of William West, the elder. Their relationships with each other shape the inheritance and raising of William West. Mary, Blount's role as aunt guardian indicates how family responsibilities sometimes transcended legal formality. Patronage was significant. The Virginia Company, Governor Thomas West, the investment networks, all of these lines of power meant that someone like William West, even if illegitimate, could have access to opportunity, travel to the New World, positioning, status in death. In England, he might have been marginalized. In Jamestown, connections mattered a great deal. Windman and West both arrive under the umbrella of the same family's influence. The colonial environment required manpower, leadership, and competence. In that context, social embarrassments could sometimes be tolerated if other attributes were valuable, but only to a point. The formal omission of William's mother signals the social risk of illegitimacy, while his burial among the elite signals that, in death at least, the family chose to grant him honor. Over 4 centuries, the story of William West's maternal line was almost entirely erased in formal records. Genealogies used sanitized language, illegitimacy stigmatized. Documents were lost or never created. Historical narratives often center the male, the lawful heir, illegitimate births often excluded. Moreover, other graves in Jamestown lay unstudied or unidentified. Archaeological attention and funding have often focused on more visible remains or documents. DNA work is recent. Only with modern science and techniques could bones that had been long decaying yield enough material to test. Also, social attitudes, family silence, the shame of illegitimacy meant there may have been active suppression of evidence. Elizabeth never married. Records called her childless, yet she had a will, oral bequests, aunt acting as caregiver. These subtleties remained hidden until someone looked for them. DNA revealed shared maternal ancestry between Windman and West via haplogroup H1OE. It showed both men were raised in England. It showed elevated lead levels consistent with elite status. It confirmed ages at death matching historical documents. It located their graves among other high-status burials in the chancel. It did not reveal everything. The exact maternal ancestor could not be pinpointed via DNA alone. Mitochondrial DNA tells us shared mother line, but not which exact woman without matching living or additional ancient genomes. The autosomal DNA was too poor to resolve paternal lineage fully or to determine whether West was first-degree relative of Windman. But importantly, the absence of record in some places and silence in others does not mean absence of truth. What DNA revealed is enough to reframe the historical narrative, to say that family histories as recorded are incomplete, that social stigma shaped records, that the lives of many, especially those with imperfect lineage, were partly hidden. This discovery changes how we view Jamestown, not as just wooden forts, starving settlers, and conflict, but as a society with family politics, lineage concerns, social hierarchy, hidden truths. It shows that even in early colonial America, identities were complex, legitimacy mattered. Family ties could be both shield and burden. It also points to the power of ancient DNA in colonial studies. Many colonial graves are unmarked, unidentified. Records are incomplete or biased toward elite, male, lawful lines. By using AADA, scientists can fill in gaps, reveal women's histories, reveal illegitimacy, reveal hidden lines of descent. Furthermore, it invites reflection on how we treat memory and legacy, whose stories are preserved, whose erased, how social norms, legal systems, social shame shape what is recorded and what is buried. This has relevance even today. Family secrets, stigmas, unrecorded lives are everywhere. Science can't restore everything, but it can help us see more clearly. In our modern age, we sometimes assume legal records, genealogies, documents tell full truth. But this case warns. Official records can lie by omission. Social norms, prejudice, shame obscure truth. DNA doesn't care about stigma. It reveals what was hidden. It forces us to ask, what historical truths remain hidden in our own past and our own families? It also shows that identity is not simple. William West had the name, the status, the connections, but part of his identity was erased, was ambiguous. That ambiguity probably shaped his life. In death, the grave honored him. But during life, his legal rights as son might have been limited. Finally, this teaches humility and responsibility for those who record history today. Archivists, genealogists, scientists. Bearing witness includes listening to what bones, what DNA, what marginalized histories reveal. It means including women, children, illegitimate births, those excluded. So what do we take away from the stones and skeletons of Jamestown? That history is often incomplete, that what is forgotten isn't always gone, that even in silence there can be truth. The dark secret of illegitimacy was not simply scandal, it was erasure. But now science has restored it partially, restoring dignity to those who were hidden by social taboo. Sir Ferdinando Windman and Captain William West are more than names. Their stories are a reminder that legacy is shaped not only by what is written, but by what is omitted. Their bones spoke. Their DNA sang of mothers, of family, of a life caught between identity and legitimacy. We've journeyed through over 4 centuries to uncover a secret almost lost to time, a life hidden by stigma, bones silent for generations, a name omitted and then recovered.